What up, K-Rugs, the sober dog, coming at ya. Today's video is about coke bugs, crack bugs. Before I get started, please do not try drugs. Do not try cocaine or crack. I do not condone any drug use. I'm not telling anybody to try or use any drugs. I'm in recovery. I'm all about recovery. If you have an addiction, please seek proper professional medical help. You can get treatment and get sober. So let's get right into it. Coke bugs. What are they? Powerful uppers such as coke and meth have a creepy, gross side effect called coke bugs, sometimes referred to as ice bugs, meth mites, amphetamines, crack bugs, things like that. Now, it doesn't happen to everybody, but a lot of people who use these drugs get this side effect. What are the coke bugs? During the excessive use of these, powerful uppers, when people are, sometimes it's either a long binge or when they just do a lot of it, they have a side effect where they either see, hear, feel, or think, or all of the above that bugs are on or below their skin. This is a lot of times why you see the drug addict in movies, especially the crackhead, portrayed, itching and going all. You get itchy from these drugs. It's a side effect of the, hypersensitivity, but that's kind of, and also why they do that, one of the side effects of it. Now, these bugs aren't really there. They're a hallucination caused by the excessive use of the drugs. But to the user, at the time, they feel, they look, everything. You can hear them. Everything is real. Your brain is telling you they're real. Now, the actual scientific term for it for the hallucinations is called a tactile hallucination, caused by, the excessive drug use. It could be caused by the drugs and also with the, chemicals and derivatives mixed in with the drugs. Another scientific term for the specific kind of itching and feeling of bugs is formication, which comes from the Latin word formicare, talking about the walking pattern of ants, the little bug pattern. So those are some terms that sometimes you might hear when they're talking about coke bugs or crack bugs. They might say the person's having a tactile hallucination or it's formication. Those things. A lot of doctors and psychologists will refer to coke bugs, as delusional parasitosis too. Another fancy word to put, the delusions and in the delusions of the feeling or the sight of bugs on or below the skin. Now, I personally have dealt with coke bugs and get coke bugs as a side effect almost every time I do excessive cocaine use or meth. Now, cocaine, I've never gotten it from snorting cocaine, but from IV cocaine use, and from smoking crack. Usually takes an excessive amount of it or a binge, 6-8 hours into a hard binge. Now, what do they look like? They look different for everybody, every user. For me, they were about, the size of my fingernail, and they were like translucent-ish, like a jellyfish outside, and they'd be right below my skin, and I would start picking and itching, and I'd grab scissors and dig in there to try to get them out. That's what I got a scar on my wrist for. They'd come in those forms. I'd feel them under my skin before I could see them. But also they'd come in the form of like, kind of like a paranoia, like the lice or scabies feeling, like the itchy, microscopic bug type of feel that they're just on you and all over you and underneath you, and you start freaking out about it. One time, I was so high, I ran into the emergency room saying, "You gotta get these bugs off me, I'm freaking out." They looked, felt, smelled, sounded completely real at the time. every bone in my body felt they were real. They threw me in a side room, gave me a sedative, sent a counselor in to see me, a drug counselor, sent the doctor in. By the time I left, they were gone. Magic. No, they were never there in the first place, but during this, it feels 100% real to the user. Other people get different effects. Like I said, they might look, feel different to each individual user. A certain person I spoke with when I was doing research for this, she was telling me her story of every time she used meth, she would have the sensation of worms going in, and she would say it would feel like it because she could feel like the squiggly pattern under her skin. Then she told me a story of one time how she was pulling them out of her nose, throwing them in the sink. Sounds absolutely nuts and crazy, and how could you do that if you know they're not there? At the time, with all the drugs in your system, it literally is just changing your brain to where they feel real. This individual specifically told me she could smell them coming out of her nose. So, I mean, everything at the time is real. But then she went on to say, after she ended up passing out that night, waking up the next morning and going to the sink, there was nothing in there except blood. Of course, they weren't real, but at the time, it feels everything, it just feels so real. You just, you don't know what to do about it. Now, some of the side effects that can happen from coke bugs, formication, tactile hallucinations are, excessive scars and open wounds, gangrene, tetanus infections, other infections, OCD because you're scratching, itching, maybe washing, and then, paranoia, long-term paranoia, because even after I'd wake up the next day, sober, and I knew they weren't there, they weren't real, I'd still think there's maybe a couple hanging around because they just felt so real the night before. I could see them. Maybe there's just some there, and I'd still be a little paranoid, itching and scratching. I even went to the doctor a couple times, like, I got lice, and he would look in and go through, and he's like, nothing's there, you got nothing. But this can be a long-term effect, and the longer a person uses and has this effect, the more their brain is going to start thinking it's real. They're there, they're somewhere. Even if I wake up and I don't see them, I know they're in or around. I could feel them, I could see them, I could whatever. If you come across somebody suffering from this, if they're actively high having this symptom, telling them they're not real is kind of pointless. You could try it, but the best thing to do is just try to keep them calm. If they've had too much of a substance, call medical professionals. Get somebody there, get an ambulance there if you need to. Just try to keep them as calm as you can at the time. Maybe if you want to bring a mirror out and show them they're not real, that's up to you. But there's not too much you could do. You just got to kind of let it wear off and make sure they don't hurt themselves or hurt somebody else if they're freaking out. So that's what coke bugs and crack bugs are. Terrible, awful, creepy side effect of drugs. I don't ever want to have that feeling again. So that's why please don't do cocaine or crack or meth if you haven't. It's awful of side effect on top of a ton of other ones. All right, hit that like, that subscribe. If you like Soberdogs content, I'll get more videos out to you. See ya.